Good day, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be placed around the world. Welcome to Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio, coming all the way from the studios in Toronto. And of course, we are globally connected. And we're just so glad that you made time to be with us today. You are not going to be disappointed. We're here. We're usually here every Saturday. We meet up and we invite everybody to be part of our dialogue, our discussion. We always think in terms of the 3Ds. We dialogue to discover things that will help us to decide what the next steps are. And we're delighted that our brother Theo, who works tirelessly behind the scenes to make sure that the system is working and running, and that you'll be able to hear us wherever you are placed globally. And so, brother Theo, it's good to have you on the team. Thank you so much for creating this platform so that Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio has become a voice for the voiceless and a platform where we come to share ideas and create safe space. There are no restrictions in terms of what you can say. Obviously, we want to be respectful and we want to make sure that what we say is beneficial to others. So this is not just a place to vent your emotions. This is a place for us, yeah, to vent in some degree, but we want to do that with professionalism and to make sure that we are actually making progress from our conversation. And so, brother Theo, thank you so much. It's good to have you on the team, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Francis. It's a pleasure, when it comes to Africa. Africa, like you always say, I'm an African. I was born African. I hope I'm quoting you right. But all the same, when it comes to Africa, Africa is dear to our hearts, and somebody has got to do stuff for us because nobody cares about us. We have to think about ourselves, and the way things are going right now, I have every hope that we are back on the right track. So thank you for that compliment.
You're very welcome, sir. And we are also delighted to have our brother JD all the way from Accra. And he must be enjoying the nice weather out there. It's getting cooler on this side of the globe. But brother JD, it's good to have you on the team. We know that there are times when you have other responsibilities, and rightly so, and you kind of scoot away and leave us alone for a little bit, but we forgive you for that. So it's good to have you on the team, brother JD, and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me on the program. I'm so delighted. We have a sunny day today in Accra. As you rightly said, the weather is okay here, and we are enjoying the sunny weather. So I hope we are going to have a very interesting program today. Thank you, sir.
Excellent. Indeed. Thank you very much. And this morning we are delighted to welcome our very own brother. I hope he's still in the Toronto area. Reverend Dr. Sam Donko. It's good to see you, my brother. I have been in your church incognito, and I didn't want you to know that I was there, but I've been there a few times and watched you in action. It's good to have somebody like you on our team. And thank you for joining us today, brother.
And he's not the same person.
He's not the same person?
Yeah, they have the same name. Yes.
Oh my goodness. I don't like it when guys do this to me. They have the same names and so forth. Brother Sam Donko, we're glad you're here with us. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for the correction, brother Theo. I appreciate that. I looked at that and I'm like, oh, me.
Just about knocked me down with that introduction.
Please stay on and welcome, brother.
Thank you.
Bring us a greeting.
Yeah, thank you. Good to be part of this show. I'm new to the discussion, so I'm going to leave you guys to lead with it, and I'll just follow. But guys, talking about weather, I'm in Toronto too, but it's cold, so I'm indoors, just waiting to see what happens.
Thank you very much, brother. You know what? We don't have spectators on this team. Everybody, we believe that everybody has something to say. So we know that by virtue of who you are, you do have something to contribute to our discussion today. And so we're really, really delighted to be here. So I guess we are continuing on Africa today, talking about some of those giants who have laid foundations for us. We are here today because we have been standing on the shoulders of giants. There's no question about it. Sometimes we don't give them the recognition and the respect that they deserve because we get busy in our own lives. But we are delighted that we have this opportunity today. So again, our listeners from wherever you are, this is Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio coming from the studios in Toronto. And we're just so glad that you have made time to be with us today. We do have something to talk about. There's a difference between I have something to say and I have to say something. There are some people who have nothing to say, and so they get up and they say, well, I really don't have anything to say, and then they take forever to say it. So we don't function like that. We believe that, when we come together, we do have something to contribute. So we're delighted. Brother Theo, please get us started. I know sometimes you get me started in a good way and you're really annoying me. Actually, someone said that when you look at anger, anger is actually a good thing because the flip side of anger is motivation. When you are the kind of person who gets angry about certain things, you're actually in good company because it shows that you have perspectives, you have ways of looking at things that are different from other people, and that's right. And so I guess it's what we do with the anger that then makes positive or negative. So, Brother Theo, why have we come back and you're like, you know what, we need to continue with this? Why are we continuing on this? I know, I just want our listeners to hear from you because you are our technician. You are the one who makes sure that our titles and focuses are chosen, and rightly so. And you've done a great job, my brother. I don't think we can ever thank you enough because you know what? There are some radio stations out there that are focused on other things, but you have decided to create space for us as Africans to come. We are not opposed to other people. We can even invite, and we've invited other people who are not African because we believe that this is a global village to be shared. But you have some thoughts and you have things that have been brewing in your, I was going to say little head, but it looks like a big head to me. So you have things that have been brewing in your head and in your heart. So share with us why this topic is still important. We touched on it, we are on it, and this may not be the last time we are on it because it's big. So share with us and our listeners what's happening.
Thank you, Dr. Francis. The reason why I want us to continue with this topic is that Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, of blessed memory, is a giant. It's one of the giants. When we come to talk about Africa, socioeconomic and political advancements, he was a giant among giants. So we cannot sort of brush him aside like some people are trying to rewrite history and then move forward when an occasion of this magnitude has occurred. Obviously, he would have been 104 years old last week, Thursday. And we've seen a lot of things going on in Africa right now. Changes, coup d'etats, and, I will not say coup d'etats per se being something bad. But I'm looking at it from the point of view that they may be good. I'm not a supporter of coup d'etats. But then if we look at where we were up until right now, I think there are some changes that needs to be done. We have to go back to the doctrine of Sankofa. And when the history, the socioeconomic as well as the political history of Africa is put on the table, I think we cannot rule out Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. And so that's why I believe that we should continue to light the flame and keep it burning, because a lot of our young people do not know who our giants are right now as we speak. We've been inundated with a lot of things that doesn't matter. It's rather, bringing our continent down, in the sense of the fact that the youth are copying blindly instead of concentrating on what needs to be done in Africa. Because I remember back in the day, in Ghana, speaking about Ghana, I wouldn't even think of traveling outside of the country. The only thing that Ghana didn't manufacture, because we were such a self-reliant country, courtesy of Dr. Nkrumah and his policies, aircraft, and a ship. We were manufacturing everything there. We were so self-reliant, agriculturally speaking, everything. And he was able to sort of educate his fellow brothers from the other countries who came to know him and to steer the affairs of Africa. He was able to share his experience and what he felt should be done to put Africa where Africa is supposed to be. So, I mean, there's a lot to be said about Dr. Nkrumah, and we can go 10 parts in this series. We won't be bored. Thank you.
You are absolutely right, brother. Thank you so much for that. I told you that you have a way of annoying us in a good way, because once you start talking about Dr. Francis Kwame Nkrumah, it's one of those conversations, I think, for me, that really brings a sense of excitement and sadness. Sadness in the sense that sometimes I wonder whether we have adopted the Western way of shooting our prophets and killing our prophets, because in a way, they were our African brothers who contributed to his death, who contributed to him being ousted and being pushed out of the way, because they did not catch his vision, which is very, very sad. Because when you look at what he did in a short, space of time, liberating. Yes, there were other people who came alongside him, but here's somebody who had a vision, not just for Ghana, but a vision for Africa. And that's why, this African personality focus that he had, it's one of those things. If we don't embrace that, listen, we're going to allow somebody else to sink our ship. We really need to wake up and embrace these realities and know that these giants, Dr. Nkrumah, the things that he talked about and envisioned and shared with people, unfortunately, it's not being caught in so many circles today. So thank you for that. Brother Sam, I know you had said that you just want to listen. I'm sure there are some thoughts that came to your mind, because I can tell that your brain is spinning in the right direction. So share with us some thoughts when you think about the topic that we have today. We're looking at the legacy of Dr. Nkrumah.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing me on, Dr. Mpindu. I was in Ghana during Nkrumah's time. In fact, right from the beginning, when we were fighting for independence. a whole lot was done to block him. He was imprisoned and all of that. He came out and he was able to electrify the people. Uh, we got behind him. But then the American interests, the European interests kicked in. Uh, they saw how great this man was, his potential. Uh, Theo was talking about how we had everything. We could manufacture, we could produce everything except an aeroplane. And I would add the uh, locomotive. But apart from those things, we did everything. So when Nkrumah was overthrown in 1966, we were subjected to a lot of propaganda. We're told that all those things were prestige products, prestige projects. In other words, um, we had factories that produced everything, but the propaganda machinery of the West, uh, working through uh, some people in Ghana. I know some of them. I did talk to one who revealed to me that all this business about Kankan Nyame and uh, all those things were written by him. And I'm going to reveal his name, Ian Omabu. I sat in front of him. I asked him, I was working as a journalist in Ghana. I asked him, and he revealed to me that he and R.S. Amageshi were the ones writing all that propaganda stuff about Kankan Nyame, about Kwame Nkrumah stealing all our money, and so on and so forth. Uh, and all that were to bring the man down and to prevent us from being masters in our own domain. Why? And I'm jumping all over the place, but that's okay. Why do we have to import whiskey? Uh, why do we have to import vehicles from other places when we could make those things and we're making those things in Ghana? And we were told that they're all prestige projects. So it was okay for us to send our money to Europe to buy European products so that they could enrich themselves. Uh, that it was bad for us to produce those things for ourselves. You know, it was sad. It was sad that we had all those propagandists working to brainwash us. Hmm?
Go ahead.
Yeah, to brainwash us into accepting what was coming from Europe and not relying on ourselves. And it has worked against us to this day, where even tomatoes are not produced in Ghana. I'm talking about, say, tomato paste. It's not produced in Ghana. We are importing tomato paste. When Kwame Nkrumah set up a factory in Broanfo to produce those things, it's it's sad. I just came back from Ghana about 4 months ago. We're not producing anything. We are importing everything from overseas. The only thing that I saw were just a few fashion items that people have created and were hanging in their shops. Where are we? We don't. We, you know, Ghana now is bankrupt after
Mm.
what almost 70 years. We are bankrupt. We have nothing to show for our gold. We have nothing to show for bauxite. We have nothing to show for uh, timber. That is sad. Where is that money going?
Mm.
You know, from all those exports. And then don't tell me, no, don't nobody tell me that we are not exporting. We are exporting, but where is the money? Where is it going? Who is it enriching? You better wake up.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Brother Sam, Brother Donko. We appreciate those comments, and I think you're raising some very good questions. And the statements you made earlier about Ghana was this, Ghana was that, 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 and now things have changed. What has happened? How come we are importing all this? And yet, I mean, it was the Gold Coast, right? There's lots of gold there. What is happening to it? What has happened to it? How has that wealth contributed to the development of the nation? And I can imagine you being um, a journalist. I mean, I'm sure you were ruffling some feathers talking about things and discovering things that some people did not want to be discovered and talked about. But our brother JD is right there. So, brother JD, give us some idea of some of the things that maybe, you know what, brother JD, we're going to put you on the spot here. Mention one or two things that excite you about Ghana, and then mention maybe one or two things that frustrate you about Ghana. Yeah, I think yeah, let's put him in the hot seat today. You are right there. Two things that excite you about Ghana. It could be opportunities, it could be what's happening now, but and then two things that really frustrate you about Ghana. I'd like Brother JD, because Brother JD, even though he's going to tell some things that are really painful to hear, he does it with a big smile on his face. So, Brother JD, give it to us. Share with
Thank you, Doc.
listeners today.
Yeah, thank you, Doc. Yeah, thank you, Doc. You know, as Theo and Brother Donko has elucidated here on the program, when we were young, all those things under Kwame Nkrumah were available. Ghana was a prosperous nation. And he foresaw, Prophet Kwame Nkrumah foresaw the situation in Ghana now.
Sounds like we just
Yes,
lost our
we just
brother.
lost him. Yes.
Okay, so yeah, sorry about that.
While he's waiting to come back to
Yes, please go ahead.
to rejoin us, um, the question, I think, well, the question on my mind that frustrates me is the fact that, and I did mention that we are bankrupt, but there are people living very well in Ghana. There's a woman who was sleeping on a mattress filled with $1 million worth of notes. Where was she getting that money from? And this woman was a minister. Where was she getting that money from? A mattress filled not with foam, but dollar bills, $1 million worth. We only found out only because she was stupid enough to go and complain that her house help had stolen the money. That's how we came to find out. Otherwise, she would have been sleeping on this money. Where did she get it from? There are schools in Ghana now that don't have appropriate material. I was talking to somebody yesterday, a university student, just yesterday, and she was telling me that they have to buy photocopies of textbooks. Come on. I think I will leave it with you for now, but Brother Daniels has rejoined us.
Yes, Brother JD, sorry about the technical difficulty there. You were just about to highlight some things that you'd said, know what? Ghana was prosperous.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm taking from where Brother Donko and Etio left. Yeah, like they said, Ghana was so prosperous when we were young. There was free education from the basic school to the university. Every Ghanaian had free education, free textbooks. And as they said, we had a lot of factories producing everything in Ghana at that time. Kwame Nkrumah had a sense of purpose to set up the universities. One for the humanities, the gone, then one for education, Cape Coast University, and the Science and Technology University in Kumasi, to train the manpower to be able to handle and work in those factories. But wait a minute. Kwame Nkrumah was a prophet. He saw the situation in Africa after our gaining of independence, and he foresaw that once the colonialists and the capitalists were thriving, economies were thriving because they have cheap minerals and raw materials from Africa. Even though they are giving independence to the African countries, including Ghana, they were not going to allow Africa to prosper. Because then if African countries prosper, they will utilize their own resources to better their lots. So they started planning against Ghana and Kwame Nkrumah. And like our friend Mr. Donko really stated, they used some Ghanaians, but the American CIA started plotting against Kwame Nkrumah after he has written the book, Neo-Colonialism, The Last Days of Imperialism. What that book really says is that, Africa, watch out. You have been granted independence status, but the colonialists who were having cheap resources from your countries are not going to allow you to manage your affairs without any hindrance. So you should be watchful of the United Nations, which is an organization whose Security Council is controlled by the 5 or so superpowers. Watch the British Wood institutions, IMF, and the World Bank, because those institutions have been put in place to keep Africa down and down and down. When that book was written and was going to be published, the American ambassador in Ghana called Kwame Nkrumah and told him not to publish the book. But Kwame Nkrumah went ahead and published the book. When he published the book, there was this $25 million grant or loan to be given to Ghana by America. It was held. Then the cartel, cocoa was and is the major crop of Ghana. I mean, major export earning commodity of Ghana. Within that period, the prices of cocoa slumped. And naturally, a prosperous Ghana, which managing its own affairs and getting a lot of foreign exchange from cocoa, if the cocoa is down, then you know that Ghana cannot get in the necessary foreign exchange to progress as a nation. And after the coup d'etat, that's Otopo Kwame Nkrumah, those poodles of the capitalist world were put in place. Then they started attacking the various industries as mentioned by Tio and Brother Donko, decided destroying them, citing that state industries were useless, they were not cost effective, and were not going to help Ghana. So they cannibalized most of the factories. As mentioned, we were producing everything in Ghana. But those factories were sold or cannibalized. So as I'm talking to you now, Ghana is a net importer of everything we need in the country. You would have heard that Ghana has gone to the IMF to seek a loan 17 times. Almost every government after 1966, when Kwame Nkrumah was overthrown, after 3.5 years, you cannot balance your budget and you go for a loan from an IMF. And IMF, when IMF comes in, they give you the conditionalities. Do this, open your economy. And, presently, Ghana's economy is dominated by foreigners. We have oil. No Ghanaian owns any oil company that drills oil in Ghana. We have gold. All the major gold mining companies are foreign owned. Telecommunication in Ghana is foreign owned. So presently, as Kwame Nkrumah told us, that neocolonialism is the last stage of imperialism, and the capitalist world will come after us, is what Ghana is experiencing now. Not that every government that has come to power after Kwame Nkrumah are made up of goons or unintelligent people. But the system that has been put in Ghana, placed in Ghana after the coup of 1966, that overthrew Kwame Nkrumah, this is the system that has been put in place for Ghanaians and the Ghanaian economy. So, if you ask me what I was excited about during Nkrumah's rule, I've told you. And if you ask me what really annoys me about the present day Ghana, is what I'm telling you. Ghana is not an independent country. Ghana is a poodle of the Western world. And because of that, everything that we do, we have to consult. Every 3.5 years, we have to consult the IMF and the Brazilian institutions. That's why you hear those bad economic news about Ghana. So I'll stop here and allow the other panelists to come in. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much, brother JD. It's really wonderful to hear those comments. And I picked up one of those things among others you shared. You said, these are intelligent people. Ghana was one of those countries that established universities that have impacted the world. I remember when I got a scholarship and I studied at Daystar University in Nairobi in Kenya. I still remember this brother. His name was Joseph Ayi. I've been looking for him on Facebook. I haven't found him yet. So if anybody knows where he is, I know there are so many Joseph Ayis in Ghana. It's hard to know which one. But Joseph Ayi, I mean, with the little knowledge I had of Dr. Nkrumah, I mean, they are intelligent people. in Ghana. Ghana was one of those countries, including Kenya, when I woke up to the world of academics, I say to myself, oh, wow, you actually have these African guys with PhDs, and they are many, many. Well, you don't need a PhD, and it's not, really a sign of intelligence either, because we have some PhDs who are educated beyond their level of ignorance. But there are some intelligent people out there, and then you think of the creation of the science institutions or institutes, technology, hands-on. I mean, all kinds of industries came because, you see, that's one of the things I think the British probably overlooked when he went for his education and got educated within the English environment. They probably thought that they were taming him and making him what they wanted him to be. But little did they know that he was actually arming himself, as we have talked about. Knowledge is empowerment. He was actually arming himself to come back and use the same skills that he had picked up in their own culture now to talk to them, because he negotiated. He brought them to a place of actually realizing this guy is smart. We need to negotiate with him. I don't think they were keen on independence of Ghana, but they had no choice, because he used riots and strikes, not riots or strikes to destroy things, but just, he was committed to nonviolence. And then they actually realized that this was too powerful for them. So they negotiated, and, and he won, became the first African president. But it's sad that even with our education system, and I think I heard something recently, I think it was your brother Theo who posted it. Somebody was saying, look at what's happening to us. Another gentleman from Africa was talking, and he says, look at what is happening to us. They are using us to shoot ourselves in the foot, to destroy our own economy. They're using us because those of us who have been trained in the West, we have forgotten about the African personality. We have given that up because we think that anything non-African has class. So we glorify that. This is why you find even in our universities, our young people, they take pride in going to a Chinese restaurant. I mean, nothing wrong with Chinese, but they take pride in using chopsticks to go and eat in a Chinese restaurant and take Chinese studies in Africa. And you're like, what is happening to us? Seriously. I mean, it's okay to eat Chinese food. I love Chinese food too. But if we are doing that at the expense of our own identity, and that is part of that African personality, I really feel that we have missed to embrace from Dr. Nkrumah. And so let's look at the education. There was free education in Ghana. And we know that he was looking at the freedom of Ghana as not being worth anything if it did not translate into the freedom of all the African countries. So he was a Pan-Africanist at heart. But the focus that he put on education was really unbelievable. So what is happening to our education system now?
Good question. Good question.
I think there's one thing, Sam, before that. The question that I think when we had Dr. Drokwatan last week, I think he was very incensed with respect to the fact that even today, if you take the syllabuses, if you take the curriculum in Ghana, history, whatever you have it, there's no mention of Kwame Nkrumah. Books are not written about him. So, you know what? This is one thing that riles me. But when he was in power, we're talking about his achievements right now. He started something like mass education. Mass education. He imported a lot of mobile library. You know, I'm talking in the 60s. Mobile library buses to go into the villages to teach. He wanted everybody to be able to read and write so that they would be able to understand where he was going, like what Fidel did in Cuba. But the fact is, did we understand him? Were we at par with him in terms of his thinking? I think we were, but at the same time, the saboteurs were, too much. Because if you want to set up the country in the right direction and then people are pulling you back, you know what? You become angry. So he started grabbing them left, right, and center because he thought they were derailing his efforts to develop the country. So education-wise, he was good. I went to school free of charge. From kindergarten to high school, free. I didn't pay anything. And today, a new government is in place, and they are doing the same thing, and then they think it's the first time that was done. No. So his achievement in terms of education, like JB said, University of Science and Technology in Kumasi, University of Cape Coast to teach teachers and all the, he had so many things planned to bring out the best in us as Africans. So on that score, what riles me, what makes me angry is due to the fact that he's never, there's nothing about Kwame Nkrumah in our history books, in our schools. Or why? It's because they want to rewrite history and it can never be done. Nkrumah never dies. That's what is meant. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Theo. Those are very good points. When we talk about free education, someone has said that if someone tells you that this is free, it might be free to you, but somebody has paid for it. Mm-hmm. There was the big brain behind education because Dr. Nkrumah understood the value of education. And he discipled people like President Robert Gabriel Mugabe of Zimbabwe, because he went to Ghana for his education, saw the value of education, and he advanced himself as well. I think I mentioned that I'm trying, but my wife says, come on, don't keep talking about it. I'm writing a book on decolonization, and I think I need to change the title now. But one of the things that really struck me was President Robert Gabriel Mugabe. He never allowed anybody, even though he had all these honorary doctorates, he never allowed anyone to call him Dr. Mugabe. He says, I am not. That is an honorary doctorate. But look at what's happening with some of our brothers and sisters who have all these long initials and credentials and, initials after their names, and they never wrote a doctoral dissertation. They never wrote a master's thesis, but they're like Dr. So-and-so, and they are flying all over the place, impressing people. And I'm like, what is it with us that we're so hung up on titles? And you didn't go to school, you didn't earn it, but you insisted that people should call you Dr. So-and-so. And if we asked you, show us your doctoral dissertation, you don't even appear anywhere in history in terms of what you have written on. So I'm saying this because President Robert Gabriel Mugabe was one of those. He valued education, and he came to Zimbabwe and provided the same thing. It was free education until some people on his team did the same thing that they did with Dr. Nkrumah. They muddled up his vision, started benefiting from his system, and of course, ultimately, I mean, he was pushed out too, but not the same way as they did with Dr. Nkrumah. So I really think that we need to do something with our education system. And I think you mentioned a very good point there, Brother Theo. Look at the curriculum in Ghana. When we're talking about the legacy of the first president and what happened to him, it's amazing how these lies, our brother Donko mentioned, some of the things that have been unearthed recently now, like who was behind all these, propaganda and all that. It's amazing how lies spread so fast like wildfire and people believe them. But when you look at his history and what he did for Ghana and for all of Africa, he is someone, as far as I know, who never owned a private jet, who never owned a limousine, who never owned, a multi-million or billion house. And yet he was the president. That just shows that, to him, it was about serving the people. But now we have people who, like you said, this minister, I think one of you mentioned about a minister was found with lots of money, and people are like, where did you find it? No, you just came on Little John Come Lately. You just became minister just a little while ago, and now you have millions of dollars in cash in a mattress.
Yeah.
So what is happening to our education system?
I may come in here. It's unfortunate that, and some of the blame should be pointed at us ourselves. We have created and allowed a system to grow in Ghana and probably other parts of Africa, where we invest in education. We send our children to school. We encourage them to go to institutions of higher learning and so on. But when they've finished, okay, when they completed their education, we don't have the system in place to exploit, to use the knowledge that these people have gained from university and other institutions of learning. So they are frustrated. We don't give them the proper support. And so, out of frustration, many of them leave Africa and go work somewhere. I heard on CBC Radio, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, some time ago, that there were more trained Ghanaian doctors in the city of New York than there are in the whole of Ghana. It's sad. We have people working elsewhere around the world who had their training in Ghana, and they are contributing. They're making great contributions wherever they are. I was just reading about the Chief Justice of St. Kitts Nevis. Her name is Dr. Mabel Ajimai. Imagine, Ghanaian woman, Chief Justice. Now this woman could have been using her knowledge, her abilities to serve Ghana, to righten the corruption that is in the judicial system in Ghana. I was reading the other day about what is it? There was a write-up, and judges are among the highest corrupt people in Ghana. Where do we go with that? You know, um, so some of it has been created by ourselves. Um, if we allowed ourselves to benefit properly from education, we would have books written, researched, written by Ghanaians and other Africans about ourselves in Africa, instead of all this nonsense about Henry the whatever and his so many wives. We know more about European history than we know about African history. Not that we don't have history. Well, these white people were coming to Africa to trade with us way before the 17th and 16th, I mean 17th, 18th centuries.
Yeah.
But you don't see that anywhere. They were bringing beads to sell, they were taking gold, but you don't see that anywhere. You know, we heard about a Ghanaian who tried to develop an aeroplane in Ghana, and he was arrested and jailed, by the colonial powers. So we need to toot our own horn. We need to write about ourselves. We need to use the research that we have conducted, our intellectuals have conducted, our researchers have collected, but they're sitting on them or taking them outside because we have not created the system to absorb these people and use their knowledge. I'll stop here.
Those are excellent points, Brother Donko. And it's sad, isn't it, that people who are creative, they have not been given the space, and that's what colonization. I mean, colonization is a brutal practice. It wasn't pretty. I mean, we have seen its effects around the world. You see that in the United States, you see that in Canada, you see that in England, you see that in Africa. The colonizers were brutal. They thingified people, according to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Because once you thingify something, you can mistreat it and not feel bad about it because it's a thing. So they thingified us. But I still think that when you look at people like Dr. Nkrumah, his vision to introduce education, and it just wasn't education, but there was a structure. These were functional institutions. They were producing people who knew what they were doing. And that's why there was all these manufacturing opportunities in the whole country, because people were equipped to actually know what to do. And so today we look at what is happening and we ask ourselves, what is happening in Africa? How come those expressions of Pan-Africanism and self-reliance and self-determination seem to have been given over to other people? One of the things which you intimated to, which I liked, is Dr. Nkrumah was able to create a brand of something that had Africanism in it. That's why some of the critics didn't like what he did to socialism. They were like, well, he has sort of changed. It's not really the socialist approach. Yeah, that was intentional. He wasn't trying to already hang on to something already produced. He was saying, how does this relate to me as an African? You see, those are the kinds of analytical skills I feel we lack today. We have looked at other cultures. We like what they're doing, but we don't understand the institutions and the structure under it that actually make those things to work. Just because we have a hospital, my friends, it doesn't mean that is going to be operational. You see, just because we have a university doesn't necessarily mean that is going to be operational. There's a lot of stuff that goes in there, and I think this is where, to the point that our brother Theo mentioned, we need to have curriculum that reflects who we are as Africans. Sure enough, some of us have had opportunities to be overseas and to go to school overseas, but we should not give up our Africanness. It's not going to be the Africanness we were 100 years ago because things have changed. And to Dr. Nkrumah's credit, we are coming up with a version of Africanism that is different, trying to address the issues today. We can't go back to those days of wearing, skin hides and running around. Things have changed. But we're saying in our change and becoming part of this global village, let's remain authentic.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You did. I'm sorry, Theo, were you going to go on? I
No,
just want
no.
to make
Go
it
ahead.
just pick on something about socialism. See, there's the political socialism and the what I would call, quote unquote, native socialism. We Africans are socialists. Okay, we are socialists. When your mother gives birth, everybody in the village will come and congratulate her. People will bring things. When there's a funeral, everybody attends. When somebody is sick, you see people stopping by to suggest kiosks and so on. Uh, my mother could go to the market in the morning and leave me in the care of a neighbor, and the neighbor will care for me, feed me like her own children, discipline me like her own children. When you went out and you were misbehaving in the street, somebody would just stop and ask you, "Hey, listen here, who are you?" And you come from that home and you are misbehaving, so they disciplined you. Okay, that is socialism. That is how we live. And if I think if we had been allowed to, if Kwame Nkrumah had been allowed to, this brand of socialism that is natural would have carried us even further than where everybody had expected things to be. But the Western interests, probably being afraid of the word socialism and so on, they took umbrage and brought Kwame Nkrumah down. But if that socialism had been allowed, I think when Mandela, for example, was in prison, Kwame Nkrumah was threatening to gather an army of African states, African people, to go to South Africa. That is socialism.
Yeah.
That is what the Western interests are afraid of.
Yeah. To add to what you just said, Burkina Faso, Niger, was it Mali, signed that agreement last week, and the agreement in terms of cooperating militarily, socially, economically, I think was one of the things that pushed France, because initially France said France wasn't going to leave. But like what you said, Kwame Nkrumah wanted to establish an African high command. You see, he was way ahead of his time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Way ahead of his time. And if we look back, sometimes some of us who are, I would not hesitate to say that I'm an avid Nkrumahist. There's no doubt about it. And I don't make any excuse about it. Because I see from where I sit right now that the man had a vision for Africa. He was able to bring all his brothers, if I say his brothers, heads of states, together. They were having meetings upon meetings every month or every other month in all the countries. They'll go and meet and discuss what they had to do. But today we don't see that. Today is a kind of me, myself, and I, and my friends and my family, whether they are qualified to do stuff, I don't care. So far as I'm in power, that's it. Yeah. But with Nkrumah, his Minister of Education had never finished high school. Nobody say. Agriculture, almost everyone who was a disciple of Kwame Nkrumah in his cabinet were not PhDs. They understood where he was going. They were on the same page. But today, nobody cares. If I'm able to go out and sign a contract on behalf of the country, say, for instance, a $500 million contract, and I'm giving $500,000 or $1 million as bribe, it's okay for me because I have some money outside of the country. But one thing that we have to take notice that Dr. Kwame Nkrumah never had a bank account. Just like what Dr. Odro Kwatin said last week, everything that was around Nkrumah was the property of Ghana. His shirt, his underwear, everything, property of Ghana. And this is a man who loved the country. It's not somebody who would just go out there and then just make pronouncements at the United Nations General Assembly and then they just go back. He made sure an African was a president at one point, a president of the United Nations General, Mr. Kwesi. Yes, he made sure. Yeah. Because he said,
Kwesi Saki.
Kwesi Saki. Kwesi Saki. Thank you for the correction. You see, this was a man who loved Africa. He wanted the African to be viewed as somebody that doesn't have to take a back seat, but a front seat. But in today's Africa, there's some few. But now I'm celebrating the 4 young guys in Mali, Guinea, Niger, Burkina Faso. They are changing the face of Africa to align with what Dr. Nkrumah and all the others saw in Africa, that Africa should not be toyed with. Because I will always say, people have disputed this fact that Africa doesn't need the world. The world rather needs Africa because we see what is happening right now. Everybody is trooping down to Africa. It means we have something that the whole world needs.
That's true.
But if we are able to put ourselves together, prepare for the onslaught that is being prepared towards Africa, we'll be able to withstand anything, any pressure. But then, before we do that, there has to be the reset of our minds. Father Kosa always said on this program, it's our taste. We have to change our tastes. We have to change our taste. Whatever is good for Africa has got to be good for Africa. We don't have to go and repackage something from, that is manufactured in Africa. We won't buy it. But if it's taken out of Africa and repackaged, we are all over it. Because why? We don't trust ourselves. We don't know who we are as a people. But I think moving forward, every African will have to sit back and say that, you know what? There is something good in us. We have changed the face of this, the world that we live in. If we talk in terms of inventions, I'm not talking only about Africa. I'm talking about the Black person. Inventions. A lot of people don't know so many things about who we are as a people. We've changed it. The cell phones and all these helicopters and all these kind of stuff, who did it? This is what Kwame Nkrumah and his brothers in the other country, like Nyereres and the Kaundas and the Kenyatas and the Nassers, and the list goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
There was that brotherly love amongst them. We have to go back there. And then, you know what? Look at who we are as a people. By so doing, Africa would have to take its place in the body politics of the world. Thank you, Dr. Ndino.
You're right, sir. You're absolutely right. It's really, really unfortunate that some of the things that are biting us now are things that have been talked about before. We have all agreed that he was a prophet. He lived before his time, and he was talking about things to come. In that, when you listen to him and read some of the things that he wrote, there's no question that this is somebody who spent time thinking things through. You know, you've heard the phrase that failure to plan is planning to fail. If you don't have a game plan, you know what? You actually have a plan not to do anything. So he was a strategist. He was somebody who saw things in the distance and he worked at them to make sure that they would be realized in real life. And so, again, you're listening to Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio, coming all the way from the studios in Toronto. And this is today's Africa. We are looking at the legacy, the contributions of Dr. Francis Kwame Nkrumah. And I don't know if we have any comments, any questions that have come through, but if we do, please feel free to bring them to our attention, Brother Theo. But, every now and again, we realize that people who have stood up for justice, some of them, the world has not been very sympathetic. And unfortunately, we see that this is exactly what happened to Dr. Nkrumah. So we touched on a number of things here, including his commitment to Africanism or Pan-Africanism, having an African identity or an African personality, and self-reliance. So what would be our message to the brothers and sisters who are heads of state in Africa at the moment, if they were to listen into this section now as we wind down in a little while? What are some of the things we could be saying to them? Listen, we do have intelligent presidents, in my view. Well, maybe we should qualify and say we do have some intelligent presidents.
That's true.
You're right.
So what could be some of these brothers and sisters need to pick up from us? I liked what Professor Lumumba says. He says sometimes those who have ideas, they don't have power. The ones with power have no ideas. So, here we are. We have these ideas, but obviously we don't have the power because we can't invade any of these African countries and say, listen, you know what, this is what we're going to do. We just don't have that power. But what would be some of these things that we could share with our brothers and sisters at this point? Because, let's face it, my brothers and sisters who are listening to us today, Dr. Nkrumah discipled people across Africa. He was concerned about South Africa. I mean, geographically, you see where Ghana is. and he was planning to have a high command to actually invade South Africa and say, you don't do this to one of our own. I mean, that's Pan-Africanism. That's big thinking there, you know? So he influenced not just Mandela, he influenced President Robert Gabriel Mugabe, you know, Dr. Hastings Kamuzu Banda, Dr. Kenneth Kaunda. You know, he influenced the Jomo Kenyatas and
Nyerere.
classes, you know, Mwalimu Kambarage Nyerere. I mean, there's so many of them. Even
Siad Barry, Omar Bongo,
yeah,
and all those people. Yes.
you know, Seretse Kama of
Botswana.
Yes, you know, there were so many people that he influenced. So, what could we say to the leaders today?
What I see is that some of these leaders, in fact, most of them, if you look at it, they view the presidency, where they find themselves, as a right, as God given. Somebody put you there. Make sure that you use the position where they placed you to serve those people, not to enrich yourself, not to override the people, not to ride roughshod, you know, on over people. We have after 10 years in power, what ideas are left for you to you know, to use to serve the people? So step aside, let somebody else come in with fresh ideas. Then whatever experience you have, whatever is left on your plate, you use it to help the person who is in power. Now, what is happening to me is untenable, that you have soldiers who come to power with guns, and then they regularize themselves and then form political parties, and they don't want to leave. You know, then they start abusing people. They start using the resources of the people for themselves, where people starve and they denied very basic things. Our leaders should realize that being put in a position is an opportunity to serve the people. That is my point.
Thank you for mentioning that, Brother Daniels.
Yeah. What I want to tell my fellow Africans and their leaders is that, as Kwame Nkrumah and the founding fathers of OAU and AU stated, as individual African countries, we are not viable. We have to pool our resources together to be great as the Americans and the Russians. And we can do better than that. In fact, apart from pushing the OAU and AU agenda, Kwame Nkrumah, most people, they don't know that he formed, as a starter, he formed Ghana, Guinea, Mali. And the three presidents, Secretary Kwame Nkrumah and the president of Mali at that time, signed an accord, and they were prepared to surrender their individual positions in their various small countries to come together to form one united country to push the OAU or the AU agenda. So we have allowed ourselves to be balkanized, and it's not working. We should all realize that the alternative is the AU, strengthening the AU, African countries coming together. Because, like the Africans will say, when the broom is single, it can easily be broken. When you have that bunch of broom that you want to sweep with, it's very difficult to do. So the African Union unity agenda is very important. And the reason why the Americans supported and the European countries supported the coup in Ghana against Kwame Nkrumah was that at the rate Kwame Nkrumah was developing Ghana, with the industries and what have you, pulling the resources of Ghana and educating the human resources of Ghana, the West saw that if they don't put a wedge in the development of that Kwame Nkrumah was undertaking, other independent African countries were going to follow Ghana suit. We're going to use Ghana's example to develop. And in that case, the West cannot come in as they are doing now, pillaging our resources. So we have tried the individual countries since the 50s and the 60s. It's not working. We should all bring our minds to the fact that in African unity, there's some progress for Africa.
Thank you so much, Brother JD. Brother Theo, what would be some of those comments you would say to our brothers and sisters who are heads of state?
Yeah. And Dr. Francis, a listener has texted something and says, the leaders in Africa should take a page out of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. And if they do that, Africa will be a great place today. And I agree with the listener. But if I'm to talk to the leaders, unity is number one. Number two, we have to invest in our youth. Because there's no reason why young people should be crossing the Sahara Desert and the Mediterranean to go and, die horrible deaths. Well, what they say is that they are going to green pastures. You can create your own green pastures wherever you are, if the policies of the government is suitable. But in today's Africa, no. Just like what Sam said, we import everything, even toothpick. So if I'm to talk to the heads of states, I would say unity is strength. We have to use our institutions, develop our institutions, come to the realization that currencies, a particular currency, the United States dollar, is supreme right now. But with the advent of BRICS and the multipolarity systems that we are looking at right now, Africa should be in the forefront, having our own currency, our own passport. That's exactly where Muammar Gaddafi was looking at. That's exactly where Dr. Kwame Nkrumah was looking at. That's exactly where so many of the African leaders were looking at. But in the end, what happened? They were eliminated one by one. But in today's Africa, I think Africans have come to the realization that if we don't fight for a unified continent, it's going to be the same. But I think I have every hope that the youth in Africa today, starting with those young guys in Guinea, Mali, Burkina Faso, Chad, and all the other places, also, like they've read the books of forefathers and Nkrumahs and all this, and they are taking the mantle. And if I'm to advise them, the new leaders, the current leadership, they should take a page out of what these young people are saying. They are crying out loud for them to listen, to transform their countries. But you know what? To say the last thing, it is so annoying, Dr. Mpindu, that uranium, France was buying uranium, I believe it was uranium for 80 cents a kilo, whereas the world price is 220 euros or dollars. It's for the same thing. France was taking, or is still taking, the uranium and all this, 80 cents per kilogram,
That's sad.
as opposed to $220.
Yeah.
And now, if these young guys are saying enough is enough, and some West African heads of states are in bed with France and the West, then you know what? The Africans are saying, the people are saying enough. They couldn't even muster the ECOWAS contingent to go because nobody was willing to do it. And this tells them that we have arrived. Enough is enough. We've made mistakes, but then Dr. Kwame Nkrumah said, the African or the black man is capable of making mistakes and correcting them. And I agree with him. And on that note, I yield my time back to you, Doctor.
Thank you very much, Brother Theo. You have been listening to Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio, all the way from the studios in Toronto, in Canada. And we are a global network. We have people all over the world who have been listening to us. I see a note here from our brother Sorrel. Sorrel Media says, socialism is the key success of capitalism. It is sometimes described as capitalism in industry, but it is the strength of capitalism. Without socialism, without socialism, capitalist and capitalism would not prosper. Well said, brother. We appreciate that. Yes, you have been listening to Love Bay Afrobeat music. And thank you so much for joining us. And you brothers have done well. And thank you for these concluding remarks. Brother Donko, you said position is really God-given. It's not a right. And we really wish that our leaders would really, embrace this. And Brother JD, you said the OAU agenda should be a priority. We need to unite. And Brother Theo, you said the same thing. Unity, unity, unity. Uniting our youth, who are not just the leaders of tomorrow, but they're the leaders of today. We can't continue to push them further and say they need to wait, they need to wait. No, we need to make adjustments now. And the listener mentioned as well that, our leaders need to take a page out of Dr. Nkrumah's life, his writings, his lifestyle. There's just so much for us to share. But thank you so much for being with us today. We really appreciate the time that you've invested. So, gentlemen, thank you for being with us as our panelists. And of course, our listeners out there, thank you for being part of the listenership. We can't do it without you. And Brother Theo, we cannot thank you enough for creating this space for us to be able to go global as we have done. So again, thank you, everybody. Thank you for being with us today. Tune in again next time. We'll be here next week. So same time, we look forward to hearing from you. And again, enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.